there was a time when I was approaching a first date like an interview. You
Yeah.
got to sit up straight. You got to like have all these lines ready. And I realized that first of all, it's disingenuous and it's hard to be charming and interesting and funny when you're being something that you're not. And so it was just doing me a disservice. I shouldn't be giving someone the wrong long-term impression of who I am. And
Yes.
if we can have a really good first date where I am genuinely being myself, it just sets things up for the long term.
Hello and welcome back to It's Only Up From Here. Abel, how are you doing, sir?
Man, I am doing pretty well. It has been a grind of a week. I don't know what's going on, but the universe has decided that like I just need to be extra busy this week. So it's definitely been a tough one. I'm actually starting to get concerned because I've spent so much time this week looking at screens that I'm like, is this how I lose my vision? Like right now I still have like fairly good vision, but I'm realizing I'm aging and I'm also spending so much time looking at screens like, 7 to 24 inches from my face. So genuine concerns there. I might need to get some glasses or LASIK at some point. So we'll see how that goes.
Except in the shower.
Except in the
You aren't
shower?
looking at screens. You're not looking at screens in the shower, right? I think we
Oh,
alluded
yeah.
to this
was
in our last episode.
Yes, it was. Yes. That's where all the best ideas come from. Yes. But no,
Yes.
otherwise, man,
Nice.
it's been good. I've been okay with my gym habits. It's been a busy week. It's been good. I think I like being busy, but it's been a while since I've been this busy, and so it's a bit interesting. But no, overall, can't complain. Yourself, man?
Yeah, similarly, I was out in the west coast of Canada this weekend. Or I guess this past week and weekend. I was visiting some clients, visiting some pals. So did some work out there, came back basically right into a full jam-packed schedule day. And on top of that, trying to maneuver through basically the chaos that's going on in our universe right now, both in the political side of things and the sports entertainment side of things. So,
Oh my goodness!
actually, before we get into this, how do you feel about everything that's going on with Mr. Donald J. Trump himself, and B, with Mr. Luka? How do you say his last name?
Doncic.
Luka Doncic. Okay. So, what's your opinion? And start with which whenever you have a stronger opinion on. I think I can guess.
Great questions that will not get me canceled by any means. That is not hot topics at all.
The newest
the one that
executive order
What's
is
that?
the newest executive order that will be banning our podcast will be signed the day after this is released.
Yeah, I might vouch for that. I might actually get behind that one.
So, okay, a side note, have you seen some of the executive order like videos of him signing it?
I haven't seen the videos. I've seen like the actual orders, but I haven't seen the videos. What about the videos?
Oh, okay. Well, the only thing that I am astonished about is the pen that he uses. It is like it's like the biggest, thickest Sharpie that you could possibly imagine. He uses that, and he has he's moving his shoulder as he's like signing with that thing, and then he holds it up, and then you see his signature on it. It's quite dramatic in my opinion, but
it seems quite theatrical. So it's just for the thickness, or is it for dexterity? Like, does he need? I guess now I'm asking questions that you probably.
No, I would say, well, because if you look at past executive orders, they just used a normal pen.
Yeah. So
whereas this is like he is quite literally rewriting history with this pen. So I mean, the guy himself wants to make a statement, and it starts with the Sharpie.
It starts with a big ass Sharpie. I like it.
Yeah.
Maybe I should look into that. Maybe I should do that for my contracts whenever I'm like signing a new one.
When we sign them.
Yeah. The bigger the Sharpie, just like it's a sign of dominance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, like this stuff happening politically is like just very confusing and hard to keep up with, because I know like now things have been delayed because there's been some like under the table handshake deal. um I know that there's like troops being mobilized and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
it's a very fluid situation, and um politics is very important, but I have a hard time sometimes motivating myself to keep up with it. Just I think I'm very what's what I'm looking for. I'm very, oh my goodness. It's like I don't like it because of past experiences. Anyway, I've never
You're
been
traumatized.
a little bit, yes, as many Kenyans are by politics in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that is it's a big part of there's a lot of anxiety, I think, overall on my part for that, just because like we're planning on being in the States in a couple of months here, and I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll be finally getting in, but the actual economics of everything will be changing swiftly. Obviously, like anyone who's invested in things that are in the States, things will get complicated, foreign exchange and all those things. So it's it's wild. I have nothing to add to that conversation, but let's talk about the
Yeah.
important thing here. Luka Doncic is on the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah. Has he played a
That
game yet or no?
He hasn't played a game yet. They had a game last night, but he's injured, so he didn't get
Oh,
into uniform.
okay.
It is it's hilarious how I found out about this. So picture this: I was hanging out with a friend of mine,
Hmm.
and it was like 1 a.m. No, it was like
Yeah.
midnight. It was around midnight. Actually, maybe it was around 1 a.m. because we're Eastern time. But anyway, I get a phone call from a different friend of mine who's in Ottawa. He's part of a group chat because we're all
Okay.
Lakers fans. This man
Right.
FaceTimes the group and is like, "Did you see what's happening?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he starts telling me about how Luka Doncic has been traded. And immediately the first thing I'm thinking is like, "You're messing with me. Like, there's no way in hell that anyone is trading Luka Doncic. He's like a top three, top five player in the NBA. He's 25. He's a face of the franchise. I just I don't understand how anyone can fix their lips to like trade him. And the fact that it actually
Yeah.
happened and like he was in yellow uniform is just I I'm still dealing with it. I'm probably gonna be dealing with it for a long time. I'm excited. I love Anthony Davis and I'm sad that he had to leave, but also Luka Doncic is just like so elite that
Yeah.
it's worth the sacrifice. I Everything is happening right now. I'm very confused. What
I
about you?
think I think
How,
if
because you texted me about this yourself.
yeah, I texted you literally right when I heard. It was probably
Hmm.
that same night and you responded
Yep.
at like 1 a.m. or something. Um Honestly, okay, I will preface by saying I don't have a particular dog in the fight or horse in the race here.
Right.
However, it's very hard, but I know enough about everything that's going on to it's very hard not to be skeptical about what's going on, right? I feel like there might be some something deeper to this because this
Mm.
for anyone who watches any sport, okay, any team-based sport, this doesn't happen,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Especially for someone of this age. And hang on, does he have a ring?
No, no, he made it to the finals last year though with the Mavericks, their first finals appearance since 2011.
Yeah, like from a Laker perspective, this guy could take over for LeBron,
Yeah, he will.
right?
Yeah.
And uh, the other thing too is like I heard he bought like a 12 million dollar home in Dallas, like in
Yeah.
Texas, like
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
And Anthony Davis also was just buying a property in Los Angeles as well. Um, Neither of them knew about the trade that was coming. No one other than I think like the GMs and a few of their special like people. LeBron didn't know, which is crazy because LeBron has had a hand or at least, like an eye on
Yeah.
every trade that's involved a team of his since like 2010. Like it's incredible that this is actually like a thing that's happened. And it is also like it affects Luca's supermax deal eligibility. And so he was going to
Mm.
be like, I think they said it'd have cost him like $100 million or something like that, like something crazy, just because now once you switch teams, you don't get eligible for like the same amount of pay versus if you were like actually from that franchise from the beginning. And he never asked to be traded. Like it's just everything about this deal is outrageous. It's
Yeah.
interesting that you mentioned that you think there might be more going on. A friend of mine has actually expressed that as well, saying that like there might be more trades in the coming weeks that make more sense. Um,
Right.
I don't know what they could do to make this make sense, but I guess we'll see.
Right. Right. No, I mean it's very interesting. I've never seen something like this before. Um and every time that I have seen it before, there's been rumors like prior to it happening. Right? When you have a superstar of
Yep.
this caliber switch
Yep.
teams and things like that. I've been I'll have to admit, I've been pretty removed from the NBA since call it 20 I'd say for the last decade, I've slowly kind of phased out in terms of like back in 2015, I knew every player, I knew every stat, I knew everything that was going on. And then I've kind of phased out, but I still know who are the best players, the best teams, and, obviously the mechanics of how you build this dynasty. And this is very anti that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, a lot of people have been, and I don't know enough about this, a lot of people have been saying that like Dallas is still a really good team.
You know what they are? That's the shocking part because
Mm,
Anthony Davis is such a good fit for the personnel that they have. And he's also elite. Like Anthony Davis is maybe like, top 12 player. So it's not like it was a terrible deal on like, asset for asset. It was a terrible deal in the long term once you look at age and
of
injury history
course.
and all those other things. So Dallas, they still will make some noise. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they made quite a deep playoff run. I don't think they're getting better though. I don't think they'll be making it as far as they did last year.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, they're a scary team. I wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs myself. So
Interesting. Yeah.
it's wild. It's wild.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's wild. I mean, that's not what I wanted to talk about today.
No.
um, no, I mean, I know you and I. Imagine if we did a basketball podcast. That would encourage me to go back and start watching basketball on it daily.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
would you
And
enjoy that?
I would love that. And I keep telling myself I would love to like become like the people who make these fancy like stats and charts online, like whether it's like on these interactive dashboards using data from basketball. And I played around with a couple of
Yeah.
those. Like actually I built a little one with like a shot chart data and like I was able to like map different players and different teams to like you can like see like percentages and efficiency and number of points scored. And it was actually a lot
Oh
of
no
fun.
way. Holy.
But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's hard to find the time, but that would actually be a lot of fun. But maybe that can be our baby project in a couple years once
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is
If
yeah.
this one doesn't work out over the course of the next decade, when we're in our
Yeah,
40s, we'll run with basketball.
there you go.
When there's a million other basketball podcasts out
Yeah.
there with
Yep, yep.
players. Like
Yeah,
players are starting their own
players
podcasts.
and past players and yep.
Wild. Okay. Anyways, what I wanted to talk about today has to do with the fact that this podcast episode will be released exactly 3 days after Valentine's Day. Okay. So if you are listening to this right now, you have just experienced your Valentine's Day or Valentine's weekend. So, what I wanted to discuss was the art of the first date. Okay. Now, of course, I will preface this by saying that both myself and you
I was gonna bring this
and
up.
Abel,
Yes.
we are
Yes.
not authorities in this space. We can simply speak from experiences, both good and bad,
Yes. I would actually
in
go a step
our.
further.
Okay.
I would say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not been on a first date si- since since the year 2023.
God
And
damn it.
I imagine it's been longer for you.
What the hell? Really?
So yeah, no, I wasn't on any first dates last year. So
Oh
yeah, so
shit.
it's just
Okay.
it's extra bad. Like the fact that we're talking about this is extra funny because of that, but we will still do our
Yeah.
best as always.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? It's funny that you say that because I think my high level opinion of this is you only need one,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
You only need one to go really well. And that's it. So I was thinking it would be cool to talk about the elements of what makes a great first date. And
Hmm.
through everything, I think it's important, especially for this topic, to open it up for comments. Like if you're listening to this right now, we would love to hear your comments, responses, and critique of what Abel and I are discussing today. So, high level, let's start with this. Do you believe that the first date starts before the actual first date?
Mm. This is interesting. This is a great question. You know what? Can I let you answer it first? Because I just feel like you have a great answer waiting, and I just want to hear what you have to say first. Is that okay?
Sure, sure. And I would say I can't really do anything other than speak from experience.
Hmm.
But right now, I guess in our modern day, it would have been good to kind of check out the get some stats on this. But I would not be surprised if call it 50 to 60% of new relationships are
Hmm.
started via text or some sort of digital platform,
Yep. I
right?
think that's a bit
So
low. Actually, would probably be happy with
you think
80%.
so?
I think. Yeah.
Uh, you think? I don't know. I feel like there's probably still a lot of older people who are kind of getting back into first dates, who are having first dates, who may not be
Okay.
all into apps and stuff. But actually, of all the older people, like call it older than 45 that I know who are going on dates, a lot of them, a lot of even them are looking at the digital space.
Yeah.
But but yeah, anyways, nonetheless, the question is, you know, the aspect of courting, okay? Like courting someone prior to the first date. I want to get your opinion on how important that is because I believe, to answer the question that I just asked, I believe that it's crucial whether the courting is done in person or via text or messaging.
So you think? Okay. Um, this is funny. So I had a chat with someone. I often do this these days, where before an episode, I'll kind of workshop some of my ideas with some friends.
Nice.
And so
I should do that.
last, it's great. It's great. Yesterday evening, I had a chat with a friend of mine who, I'm trying to say this in a sensitive way, who's essentially like the kind of person who can go on as many first dates as she would like.
Ah,
Like there is a like, yeah, like the demand is high, let's just say that.
okay.
And so her perspective was actually quite interesting because she's coming to it from a place of like selecting as opposed to, I guess, for example, from my side, it would most often be from the side of seeking. Right.
the demand
Mm,
the demand is a
yes.
little bit more even with supply on your
Yes.
side. The
Yes.
economics is not
We're at
imbalanced.
equilibrium. Yes. She has surplus. I'm at equilibrium. Maybe even deficit, but that's a story for later on in the podcast. Um, and she echoed exactly what she just said. She basically said how important it is to basically showcase what type of person you are well before, like, even before asking really for the first date, or, sometimes it's crazy. Like, people will ask people for dates, like off of the first meeting, like you see someone in the street at a bar, whatever it is. And essentially, yeah, so whatever the gap is between the first meeting and the actual date is actually really important. Like you just said, I
Mm,
think it's time to make the other person comfortable. It's time to show your intention, right? So, like, like, is this something you want to be really serious about? Is this something that you want to like explore? Are you dipping your toes in? So no, yeah, I'm with you. Like, it's critical to like make a great impression in that window. And I have some beef with this. If you don't mind, a small segue
sure.
might turn into a big segue.
Okay.
I think I have an issue with selection bias, and I think it's really prevalent in general in society. The best example that always comes to my mind is with the people we elect to office. With
Okay, we're
elections,
bringing it back to politics.
we're always bringing it back to politics. Everything is politics. But like when you really look at how politics are done, especially for like, like the highest offices in the land, I'm thinking, like president, VP, all those kinds of things. The people who get elected not because they will be great at their jobs. They get elected because they're great at campaigning, right? Like they're
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I
Mhm.
do believe that any sort of political contest is way more of a popularity
Yeah.
contest than it is a straight up um assignment of the best fit person.
Yes. And that's just to me, that's you're electing you're choosing someone for the wrong job. Like if the job was
Mhm.
campaigning, then that's a really good way to select that person. And obviously there is overlap, right? Like I think that's the thing that makes it a bit complicated is that running a good campaign does have some overlap with like, someone who can actually be good at administering whatever
Yeah.
position they're running for, but it isn't the best measure. And I think this is similar to the first date. So if we rewind, what is it, 3 Valentine's days ago when we posted, How to Not Die Alone,
Yeah.
we had a segment in there where we chatted about the fact that what people look for is very different from what are actually the good indicators of like a partner that will do well by them in the long term. And I think
Mm.
that the amount of importance we put on the first date is just that, like personified essentially. Like it is how good are you going to look? It's, do you show chivalry? Do you bring flowers? It's like, it's flattery, it's appearances, it's politeness. Like, it's all these things that, I mean, sure, they're good, but, a person who's going to be a good partner can showcase those things, but also a person who's just really good at first dates and then will, disappear in a little bit is also going to be able to like showcase those things. And so, it's
Right.
interesting. Like, I don't know there's no like definite answer, but I do think that there's a lot of risk of indexing on the wrong characteristics, I guess, with the first date.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's great. It's great that you said that because I think it's important to make a distinction between how to pull off a fantastic first date from how to be great at dating or how to be great in a relationship. Right? I
Hmm.
think that the answer to those two conundrums are quite different, to be honest. Right? And it's something that you said earlier, kind of bringing it back to, what needs to happen before the first date. I have a hypothesis that you prior to the first date, the courting process, the courting period is all about, I think it's way more about showing someone the type of person you are rather than showing someone who you are.
Okay,
Okay?
define that
And
distinction for me.
yeah, I would say that the type of person you are has way more to do with, your character, your charisma, your personality, whether it's through simple banter, how you receive and give communication and things like that. Whereas who you are is how you would introduce yourself to someone, just a random stranger or a coworker
Hmm.
or someone who almost just like you're putting out your who you are is, I would say, putting out your resume, right? Whereas the type of person you are is truly the depths of who what makes you different, right? For
Hmm.
example, two lawyers who just made partner at a big firm who has, you know, a family with kids or who likes sports or basketball or whatever it is, those two people, who they are, could be the exact same person. However, the type of people they are would be completely different.
Hmm.
And I do believe that toe to toe, right, the the type of person you are is going to be the difference in the courting process of whether you're going to be able to get the first date or not.
Do you think that's important for the first date or for the second date? I feel like the person, like the labels and those kinds of things, can actually probably get you a first date, but it might not get you to the second date. You know what I mean? Like, so what?
I actually think the complete opposite. I think that
Really?
the labels and things like that are naturally what people over index on in a digital dating world.
Hmm.
However, I do believe that, you know, well, think about it. We've got more opportunity and more access to pretty much single people out there in society than ever before. Yet we have the highest rates of single people ever, right? I do believe that courting is a way more about it. And keep in mind, I'm only saying this is because through all of my first dates that have turned into relationships, right? It during the courting process, the pre-first date process, just by coincidence, I had there was no part of it that was who I was, you know? And what do I do or what do I like or things like that. I truly
Hmm.
believe. Keep in mind, this is just to get the first date. This is not to actually turn the first date into a long lasting relationship and things like that. It's just to get the first date. I think the thing that helped me the most is focusing on trying to develop chemistry and banter and simply an aspect of allowing both parties involved to kind of let their guard down,
Hmm.
which actually had nothing to do with what I did for a living or what do I do in my spare time or whatever it may be. Okay, do you kind of get what tree I'm climbing up here?
I do. Yes, I do. I'm wondering if there's any counterexample, like, 'cause, like, I get what you're saying. I totally do. But I think we're conflating being single with people not going on dates. I think lots of people still go on dates, right? I do
Hmm.
think that the value of the date is greatly increased when someone sees, the kind of person you are, if that's the phrasing that we're using today. I
Yeah.
think that I would completely echo that. Like all of my successful first dates, which have not been many, I realized actually in researching this episode, I don't think I've been on enough first dates in my life. I think I love first dates. First dates are great. They're fun. And they're interesting, and you get to like meet people. But yeah, I it's not really a thing that I do, or at least I definitely haven't the last like year and some change. So, interesting thing. I might have to pick up a little bit. I might go on some dates in the next little bit. But that's besides the point. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, no, hmm?
No, I was just going to say, I was just going to agree with you. I feel like a lot of the stuff we talk about today, it'd be really great to use you as the guinea pig to test different aspects of, if you are trying to court someone, what if you try it without at all mentioning what you do for a living or what you enjoy
Yeah.
doing or things like that, and more just focus on the banter and the chemistry that you can build with that person.
This is great because the last time we spoke about my relationship status on a podcast, I'm still hearing about that. Actually, I'm still getting
We
roasted
had a
by the
pretty
gang. So
it's like our
they have
most
not lived
viewed
that down.
short is
Yeah,
like you saying I can feel it in the air that something is coming.
and so far nothing has come. So
Oh
soon
shit.
time, soon time.
Yeah, that's okay. Listen, this is a long game. Like we said, you
Yep,
only
yep.
need one,
You
right?
only need one.
You
You only
only
need
need
one.
one. Um yeah, I don't know. I think there's here's a great example, okay? Even with, the modern day dating apps, right? And I can only speak this from, a guy's perspective, having used dating apps for a short period of time when I was single back circa 2021, 2022. There there was almost there was this crazy amount of pressure when you matched with someone, okay? to deliver something as like your opening line, right?
Yep.
It was, and it's and no part no part of it was, "Hi there, I'm a I'm a lawyer at quote unquote law firm." Like no aspect of that was like that was never the key to success. Okay, I think it was, what is one line that would that you could send to this person that is sufficient enough to communicate some good quality aspect of the type of person you are, whether be it funny, genuine, kind,
Mhm.
interested, all these different aspects. And I think those qualities are the ones that are way more likely to, I guess, if you're texting via a messaging app, to get a number and then there go continue the texting conversation and then get a first date.
Right. So you're thinking here about kind of showing a glimpse of the person that you are right off the rip.
Yeah, I think you can, even in the first date too, you could, I honestly feel like even in the first date, you could get into like the discovery process. And there's something to that, right? You could start
Hmm.
learning about someone way more than, the type of person they are or how they communicate via an app or, in a party setting as, it was for me, right? The second time I ever saw in person Sophie was on our first date, right? Whereas the first time I saw her was literally at a party that, you hosted. And that was, call it the first bit. And then after that, we texted and messaged on Instagram. And then, I got her phone number. And then at no point in that process, up until fast forward to our first date, did I ever really talk about my job or my political beliefs. God, I'm glad I didn't do that. I would advise anyone. I've never done
Hmm.
that, but uh, you know, I don't think. So keep in mind, I guess maybe I might be biased just based on my own experiences, but I think there's something to that.
Yeah, no, I think you're on the money. Like I don't disagree with you on how important it is for the success of the first date. That the pre-work is done and that you're showcasing the different dimensions of your being. Like I'm 100% with that. Um I guess I'm curious, like what would you say, and I might be getting ahead, so just correct me if I'm jumping ahead
Hmm,
a
hmm.
couple of topics, but the anatomy of a great first date. Like we're talking about for sure the pre-build up, we're talking about um like how to actually, I guess, present yourself in that before time. Let's just talk about the actual date, like the
Okay,
yes, like what do you
so
think makes
assuming you, yes, so assuming you have courted your way to a
hmm
first date, you've somehow managed to
yes.
get a first date, whether it's
Hmm.
via talking about your credentials or showing the type of person you are, whatever it
Hmm.
is, or maybe a combination of both. You've gotten to the place where you've successfully acquired a first date.
Yes.
Okay. So now how do you operate on the first date?
How do
You're
you
asking me or what are or should I ask you?
I want to know what you think about this one. I want to know, like,
Hmm.
is there a way to get into zone? Like, how do you approach the planning phase? Because I mean, we're guys, right? So we typically would be, I guess I don't know about you, but like I prefer to plan the first date. I feel like you're probably the same in that regard. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know, like what's your approach? What's your angle, or what was your angle?
Well, I would say, actually, referring back to that episode in, call it 3 years ago in our first season of How to Not Die
Hmm.
Alone, I very much believe that the ultimate goal of the first date is simply just to get a second date if both parties seem interested.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And now, with that being said, taking every other goal off the table, what is the system that would generate that the accomplishment of that goal? Now, I believe a fundamental key is trying to both be and make the other party in all aspects or the entirety of the first date as present as possible.
Mm,
Okay. Getting rid of any sort of nerve, anxiety, overly reminiscing, or overly future thinking. I think the element of presence is absolutely mandatory in a first date. Okay. And I would say that this is this is done through, I would say, a few things. Number one, like humor, right? Humor, optimizing for humor and funny situations is key, because when there's a reason why comedians are so popular, right? Is when you're laughing at something, you're very present, right? You're not thinking about the future or the past, you're just very present. And naturally, if you can laugh about something, if humor is a big aspect of how the type of person you are, it just naturally, the more present someone is, naturally their guard just seems to let
yeah.
to almost just drop, right? And it and if you are just naturally able to make someone laugh, it instills so much just confidence in yourself, right? And you feel like you're in the zone, then you get present and in the zone. So I think humor is a big piece. Spontaneity would be great too, in terms of conversation, just charisma, kind of breaking the natural pattern of what you would think a boring conversation would be, right? And that could start right at the beginning of, when it comes to how has your day been, instead of being just very like straightforward and just being like, oh, it was good, how was yours? You could get into a deep story that could showcase aspects of emotional intelligence or vulnerability or something like that could lead to more questions or create opportunities for the other person to like hang on to, and then you can go down that path or whatever, right? So I think, yeah, like humor, spontaneity, storytelling, good storytelling, um, could are all aspects of bringing someone to the present and bringing yourself to the present. And I think that naturally builds tons of chemistry throughout the whatever, anywhere from 1 to, in our case, 7 hour long first date.
7 hours.
Yeah, it was wild. It was wild. Time just flew by.
That's amazing. I love that. I love the call out of presence. I think that's something that I've noticed actually in my favorite days. And now that you mention it, but it was never like a specific goal, but it's just one of the results. Like, when you're on a good date, you're not checking your phone, you're not like
Yeah.
watching the video game or the basketball game on the screen in the bar. Like, it's just that just doesn't happen when you're in a great date. So I love that call out. I also would really emphasize ensuring that you're having a good time. I think if you're constantly trying to, like, be funny and be accommodating and thoughtful and all these things, like, that's fantastic. But at the same time,
Mm,
it shouldn't then come at the cost of like you yourself enjoying the first date, because then, like, what's
yeah.
even the point? Like, what are you doing all this for? So I think, like you had said, it's so much better. Like, you even get more comfortable when you can laugh, like when you make the other person laugh, but like when you make yourself laugh. Like, I've emceed a couple of events in my life, and my first, like, the time when I know that, like, okay, we're in the flow state, this is about to go really well, is the first time that I laugh at something. And so I always try as much as possible to make myself laugh, because as soon as I have a genuine laugh myself, the audience is immediately on our side. Like, we're
Yeah.
cooking. We're in good waters. And I think it's the same thing for a first date. I think it wasn't a first date, but like me and one of my exes, it was like a second or a third date. No, it was our second date,
Mm.
and everything was going wrong. The first place we tried to go to was closed. The second place asked for ID, and she had just like replaced her license, and so it wasn't available. And so we just kind of like kept trying things, and like we just were laughing so hard at the ridiculousness of the situation. Like, we just want to spend time with each other, and nothing is going our way. And the fact that, like, I was able to laugh at, first of all, like the fact that I didn't call ahead to see if this restaurant was going to be open, and then the fact that, like, she left
Mm.
she doesn't have an ID. Like, there were those genuine, like, small moments of, yeah, it is what it is. Let's just like have a good time. I think that was just so key, because like you said, like, their guard goes down, but also yours does. Because I mean, I feel like I tend to have a guard up sometimes, and so
Yeah.
as soon as I can feel that dropping down, I think we're in a good place. So those are some really good calls. I like those.
What do you think about the influence or the addition of alcohol on a first date?
My thoughts on alcohol are changing. I think yours have in the last couple of years as well, but that shit is poison. Like it's crazy that it's a thing that we actively do. So I think I understand why it can be a good thing. I don't think it should be necessary at all. I'm sure that's not what you're trying to insinuate, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I can get behind it. I can. I can't think of. I've had some of my favorite first dates have been like alcohol free. I just keep saying this like I've been on like a ton of first dates. I really haven't, but like I think I think because my first dates, I tend to prefer like something chill and daytimey for my first dates. That's just typically been what I do, which is like like a coffee or an art gallery or something like that, where you don't really like be sipping at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. So I find that it's not been too common in my experience, but the times when there have been a beverage or two involved also can be a lot of fun. Like it's definitely a
Mhm.
loosener. And so if you're a high strung person, I can totally see how it can help. But it shouldn't be like a thing you depend on. Like, what do you think about the boozy?
Yeah, you hit it right on the nail there. I mean, I think that if you are naturally a high strung person, I think alcohol, for all of the heat that it gets, I think it's a great antidote and a great piece to bring you to the present, right? Obviously in moderation, right? Like I don't,
Yes.
this is you shouldn't be going on a bender here for your first date. However, I think that there is an element that it allows you to just come to the present, be a little bit more easy and relaxed, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, I think if it does work, I think it would be great. I think going out for drinks, grabbing a drink is
Hmm. Hmm.
fantastic, especially
Yep.
if it can allow you to loosen up, and then you're good with just one, right?
Yep.
And then as long as you could get to that state of, building chemistry, the banter, having good conversation, communication, and charisma, I think I think it's a great you could obviously do that on your own, right? You could will your way there, but the use of this external substance is, uh, I think it's not bad.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think in moderation, totally. It's probably similar thing with cannabis. I think it's a relaxant, so
Yeah.
that's one that I don't particularly
I mean,
partake
there's
in. But
yeah, there's I guess there's a little bit of a difference in like, hey, do you want do you want to smoke up a joint
no, but I mean,
while we get to
if
know each
if he
other?
or she's a smoker, like I mean, I'm sure they'd be down. Like that's a thing.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
Yep.
But I'm
Yep.
just saying you could go to a bar or a lounge and
Mm,
have, yeah.
mm,
I
yeah.
would also say the a lot of people talk about coffee on a first date, whereas I try to avoid it just simply because it's a stimulant. So if you're a naturally high strung person,
Mm.
it might create issues,
Are you a
right?
naturally high strung person, Aaron?
I would probably say so. Yeah, I would say
Yep.
naturally I'm pretty high maintenance. I very much am a planner, and I like assessing if something's going well or not, right? I like getting some sort of feedback in my
Yeah.
brain to
Yep.
process if something is going well or not. So I try to avoid coffee. Also, a first date if it's in the evening, you know. I'll go on the
Yeah.
first date, but I'm not going to ruin my sleep,
Yeah.
which actually which alcohol
Priorities.
would do, but but
It's
but for
different. That's
sure
different. That doesn't
caffeine would
count.
do.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think another thing I thought of was this rule of three. Okay, so I think there's something, assuming that the date is going well, is to have, call it, three things planned, three almost events or segments planned over the course of an evening. Okay, so for example, my first date with Sophie, it was we got drinks, we went for a walk, and then got dessert. right?
That's solid.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, I think a walk is great. If you can include a walk in um in the course of the evening,
Hmm.
it's fantastic simply
Hmm.
because naturally when two people are looking at something and conversing, it's much easier to talk rather than two people looking at each other and
Hmm.
conversing.
I love this. I'm afraid though that, like, you would probably say to include a walk in everything because you're a walker. But no, this is a great
True.
tip. Yes. It's funny actually, yeah, because like one of my favorite first dates was similar to that. Like, I think, what was the cadence? I think we went to the art gallery. Oh no, no, we went to the Van Gogh show. We went, and it's funny. I mean, it didn't end up anywhere, but it was still a great first date. Van Gogh show, and then we went
Good.
to what's that place? The Roost on Cordon. Love that
Right.
place. And then after that, we
Great
played
spot.
pool. Yeah, yeah. And yes, the rule of
There
three. I
you
like the rule
go.
of three. Hmm. I like competition. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm a competitive guy, and anytime there's competition on a first date, I think it also can lead to a lot of interesting banter because banter is just so key. I think that's just really where a ton of the fun happens, and the more fun a first
Yeah.
date is, like the higher the chance of a second one for sure. So, yeah, I would include some sort of
100%.
competitive something.
I had competition on my second date. I did
Mm.
not wanna let her see my competitive side on the first date.
Fair, fair. If you are
Yeah,
a bit too
it's
competitive, then yes, you know yourself.
no, yes, yes, exactly. No, I think it's great. And to your point earlier of, you said it's a shame that it didn't go anywhere or it didn't go anywhere. I think just because a first date is good, I would say there is very little indication of, it being a signal for a great relationship. So I have that belief. I think that there's way more to it than obviously doing really well on a first date, assuming, right, um that we're taking these ingredients and putting it into the first date. Like
Mhm.
obviously a good relationship is not just, about only being in the present, right? You wouldn't get anything done. I think as you progress in a relationship, there's a lot of dopamine and that's generated and oxytocin that's generated through thinking and talking about the future, right? That's just a
Yep.
natural relationship, the course of a relationship. But I think for the first date with the genuine uh goal of getting a second date, I think it's very okay to not think or even talk about things or aspects of the future,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
100%.
And I don't know, like this is from the book How to Not Die Alone. I think people tend to yeah, over index on this idea of your first date should be the determinant of if you would you be in a relationship with this person. I think it takes 3. 3 dates are great
Hmm.
to make the call.
Yeah, honestly, and this is like something that I was thinking about as well. Is like, I think my approach to first dates really has been changing over, like, since I was like in my teens. And I think what I can't help but do, or at least, yeah, in the last time I was on a first date, is that I can't help but just like to be myself. I think there was a time when I was approaching a first date like an interview. Like, it's gonna be like, you got to
Yeah.
sit up straight, you got to, like, have all these lines ready. And I realized that, first of all, like, it's disingenuous, like, and it's hard to be charming and interesting and funny when you're being something that you're not. And so it was just doing me a disservice, and even like whatever goals I was trying to achieve then. But even more than that, this idea has been playing in my head a bit more in the last couple of years, where like, I shouldn't be giving someone the wrong, like, long term impression of who I am. And
Yes.
if if we can have a good first, let's say we can have a really good first date where I am genuinely being myself, and I'm not, like, pretending, or I'm not like trying to big myself up or act like all these other things, then it just sets things up for the long term. I just think that just allowing myself to be myself more, whether that's like talking about random things that I generally wouldn't around certain parties, whether that's being truthful and honest and just like being chill. Like, I think I'm just a very chill guy, and I used to be try to be like excited and weird, and like, that's just really not my thing. So yeah, I think I'm trying to control for other people indexing me on a first date by changing what information they have to begin with. And so if they're over indexing on the first
Mm.
date, it's still a good representation of the person that I am, I think is the long way of the short way of saying a long thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Have you ever heard of the YouTube channel Charisma on Command?
I have, um, did they get in some flack at some point? I feel like, or is that a different channel that I'm thinking about?
Maybe, I think
Okay.
so. I don't know. I remember so the guy, his name is Charlie Houpert, I think. He so he was on a couple of other podcasts that I listened to over the course of the past month or so.
Hmm.
And he talks about charisma, okay, and the aspects of charisma and how important it is to bring that out in um in meeting anyone, let alone going on a first date with someone. But so he breaks it down into like five types of charisma, right? So number one is conviction, like you know y- you have people like Conor McGregor, like you have people like Donald Trump, like you have all these people who are whatever, not necessarily, they might not necessarily be great on a first date, but but I would say that you have these people who are so convicted in what they believe in and what they stand for that I think it's almost just like they have this confidence to them that they can predict and tell the future that a lot of us naturally just lack. And I think that's very attractive. And it's very charismatic about someone. So conviction is one, the first type. The second one is authenticity. So this is
Hmm.
like your Joe Rogan type of person who is unapologetically themselves, right? So kind of just like you were saying, is you want to bring yourself forward rather than the aspects of yourself that you're not necessarily being authentic about. Um, the third one is humor, right? So like I would bet that most comedians, professional comedians, would do really well on first dates, right?
Agreed.
Naturally, because they've just got so much charisma through their humor. Number four is empathy. So you used someone like Oprah is a perfect example of how they just make you feel really comfortable. They can get into how you feel about the way that you feel about things. And I think that's a phenomenal level of charisma. And then the fifth one that he said was energy, right? So a guy like Will Smith, who's just so dialed up, and basically every time they come on, like they're the first ones on the dance floor. There's just so much energy towards life, and that's very charismatic. So I think if you can channel one or multiple of those elements in terms of charisma, and without being disingenuous, channel the one that you feel most comfortable with, and that
Hmm.
I think that would go a really far way.
I love that. That's a great list. That is a fantastic list, and I think that really covers um, just some fantastic ways to, yeah, have a great first date, have a great interview, have a great meeting with a friend. Like that's kind of everything, isn't it? Like I think that charisma idea really encompasses like a ton of human interactions. It's love that.
Mhm. Have you ever had a terrible first date?
Ah, terrible.
Abel's like, how much time you got?
Terrible for me, terrible for her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, very
Didn't
different
find out it was
ideas.
terrible until 2 weeks later.
I will say perhaps my funniest first date was a first date that I did not know that I was on. I
Ah.
I discovered mid date that it was a date, and that was that's not what you want. That's not that's that's not one of the ingredients to a great first date is finding out mid date that it is a date. I thought we were just chilling.
I could see that with you. I could see that with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I feel like
Honestly,
you're naturally a pretty flirty person.
I, yeah,
And I could see how you could how someone could be convinced that you were on a date, but you wouldn't be able to convince yourself that you were on a date.
first of all, how dare you? And I would honestly say, like, yeah, like looking back, it's like, yeah, yeah, that was a date. Like when I look back, it's like, yeah, yeah, that was on me. I should have known. But yeah, I guess it was very directed by the other person, and I guess it was fluffy. It was one of those things where it's like we'd kind of been chatting about it for a little bit, but like it kind of disappeared, and so it did feel like when we were initially talking about it, there was going to be like a hangout, but no, yeah, there were some different expectations on the different sides, and the activities we did, there was like an art gallery involved. We ended up like at a music
Oh
show
yeah,
with like this amazing live
that's a
band.
date.
Yeah, 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 that's a date. So, yeah, that was probably. I probably wasn't on my A game because I didn't know, but it was still a good time. I think we
There
both
you
still
go.
enjoyed it. It was just really funny. What about you,
That's
actually? What
funny. That's
have you? Do you have
hilarious.
any bad or I guess interesting?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean luckily there's only one that I could think of. I once went out on a date with someone and things were going pretty good. We had all these elements that we've discussed. I was feeling very present. There was lots of humor and jokes, and we were walking. It was great. And then later on in the evening, she got a call from her little sister. Okay. And her little sister was like at a party and had a little bit too much alcohol and was basically just not in any capacity to make her own way home. So this person who I was on a date with just asked me if we could just go pick up her little sister and drive her home. So, I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I like my car is right there
What
and
do you
we
say?
can
Yeah.
whatever. It's going to take like 20 minutes and we can, we can just continue this date. It was like at 8 o'clock at night. And then yeah, we went we went to pick up her sister and her sister threw up in the back of my car.
Oh no, that
Yeah.
is yeah.
Yeah. And so safe to say when I dropped her sister off, was the last time I saw
That
either one of those two people.
probably
Yeah.
mutual. Probably she was also mortified by this whole experience.
Yeah, yeah,
Man,
that's why I would say it wasn't necessarily a bad date. It was just a bad circumstance that
yeah, just
came into play.
an unfortunate series of
Whatever. She
events.
obviously apologized and a bunch of that stuff later, and then I just went home and hosed off my car.
Yeah, yeah, that is the worst. The vomit in the back seat is no fun for anyone. Least of all the person cleaning it the next day or the night of. Man, yeah,
Yeah.
that's tough.
Yeah, it was not great. But that's the only one I could probably
Mhm.
remember that
Honestly, if that's like your worst
wasn't.
experience, that's probably solid. Like that's a good indicator of like both how you are on dates and your selection of people to go on dates with.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there was a point in time where I was like, okay, the completely opposite of what you thought. There was a point in time halfway through where I was like, okay, this is no longer a date.
Yeah.
It started off as a
Yeah.
date,
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, you know what? At this point, I'm just being a gentleman
Yeah.
and an Uber driver
This is a rescue mission now.
with no damage deposit for the
And no
car.
tips.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. I mean that's probably the most memorable one, and I'm probably never gonna forget that one. But
And you're probably never gonna have I mean, not probably, you're never gonna have another first date. So
yeah,
that's in the books as like the worst one. So that's pretty
the
great.
worst one. Yeah, and best one was definitely with Sophie.
Amazing. It was meant to be.
Yeah, that
It
was
was
that
meant to
was
be.
best first date. Although second date with Sophie was not as great as first date, simply because second date with Sophie, she told me that she was moving away in like 6
Oh,
months time.
Calgary, right?
Vancouver.
Vancouver, even better. Okay.
S- yeah. So even further. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that wasn't ideal. But I kept going and here we are.
Here we are
She
now.
didn't move.
T
Yep.
minus, what is this now? Do you have a countdown going or how many days until the big day?
I should have one. About
I'm
five,
gonna guess a
6 months?
solid, yeah, yeah.
Less than 6 months now.
let's just call it around 115 days until the wedding day. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. I'm excited to see your emceeing
Yeah,
now that we understand what it takes to make sure Abel is good is make sure he laughs at himself.
I have a new problem that is entering my calendar. That is with regards to this emceeing business.
No way. Okay.
Um, so your wedding is fine. You guys are in August, yeah?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. There's a wedding I'm
Yeah.
emceeing in Calgary in September.
Okay.
And now one of my close friends is considering doing something the day before this wedding. And so there would be a different wedding in a different province the day before I'm supposed to be in Calgary. I'm seeing this wedding.
No, really.
And that's just something that I'm dealing with as we speak. So yeah, we'll find out more.
I think the play is to not go to the man, trust me, if I had any more hope in Canadian Airlines,
Yeah,
I would encourage you to just send it and do both, but that's risky business.
that is
Unless if
risky
you have a
business.
solid unless if the couple would have a solid backup plan, but even then, we don't have a backup plan for you. You're
I'll be in
walking
Winnipeg.
here if you need to.
That yes, yes. that one is in my calendar and it's perfect. It ties in actually with some work things I'm happening in Winnipeg, so that's perfect.
Yeah,
But
there
yeah,
you go.
it's geez, like people like ask me before you choose a day for your wedding. Like like send me a
Yeah.
message first. What are you doing?
Exactly.
I should
Yeah,
be the
which is
last
why we
signature.
told you like a year in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. You
first
guys
dibs
did
at
it right.
Abel's calendar.
You guys did it
Yeah.
right. Yeah, no. We'll see. We'll see how she goes.
Um, any interesting things from the week that you came across?
Hmm. Interesting things from I was actually going to bring up the Luka trade and all of that madness, but we've beaten that horse already. So,
Yeah.
anything on your side, real quick, while I open up my database?
Nothing that I can particularly remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it's just been a week, man. I
Hmm.
am properly, as the British say, knackered. I am
Yeah,
I'm exhausted.
yeah,
And this weekend I'm going to Saskatoon. Uh and the following weekend is Valentine's Day. So busy, busy. All good things though. All
yeah.
good things. Things are heading in the right direction. You know what? I will say, okay, I have been going through, I would say, a mini existential crisis, right? So rewinding back to like our, I don't know, probably first or second episode back, okay, this year, I very distinctively said I am not, I don't have a financial goal this year. Okay. And I have been really struggling with that because I'm naturally a person who likes to track things.
Hmm.
And it's very hard to track things that are hard to measure. So my default is just naturally coming back to measuring my finances, which I don't want to do. So do you have any solutions for this?
just just solve my problems immediately. No, like
Please.
this is interesting. I feel like okay, this is a thing that is often told to me by a good friend of mine, and like that pressure is something you should probably work on. Like the fact that you're feeling that discomfort is probably an indication that you're heading the right direction. What's that? There was a phrase once that I loved. It was like something about the is it the obstacle is away? No, that's a book, but it's similar to that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Similar to that.
I
It
get
was it
you.
was it was that sentiment. It was like like the feeling you're feeling of like discomfort, the feeling you're feeling of oh man, I this is not okay. This is not okay. That's probably an indication that you should probably keep going that direction. Like that's
Mm,
the compass that you should be following because that's growth, right? Like growth is uncomfortable. So maybe that's just lean into it. Just be like, okay, just lean into the discomfort.
that 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 doesn't really solve my problem.
Yeah, no, that's the point.
Okay.
Okay.
So continue and bask in the glory of an unsolved problem is what you're saying.
Yes, because it's not really a problem,
Ah.
right? Like you said, it's not really a problem. It's just your own discomfort
Yeah,
with the
yeah, I guess
situation.
so. It's my own psyche that
Hmm.
I'm plastering over this. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it
Okay.
sounds like you're making progress
Um
against your own demons. So
yeah, I will continue to report back over the course of the
yeah,
next few months.
this is the best kind of advice when you don't actually say
Halfway
anything.
through the
I
year,
love it.
halfway through the year, I'll be like, I hit my halfway year financial goals, man. It was great.
It's my best year yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. It's funny how you
Nice.
say like how the next couple weeks gonna be, and I feel very similar. Like I am also exhausted right now because of just how work has been. Less travel for sure,
Mhm.
but it has been kind of crazy. And
Mm.
funnily enough, over Valentine's Day, my cousin, who featured on one of our episodes, the one who taught me to come into Montreal in the first place, he is actually going to be visiting me over Valentine's Day weekend. And it's
Nice. I thought
what's
it was
really
your
funny.
sister's birthday.
It is, yeah, but it's not gonna line up properly. Like this was the only time
Okay.
he's a doctor, and so like this is the only time when he was actually able to get time off. And
Right.
so yeah, so they'll be joining us up here, and it's so funny that like February 14th did not even register in my brain as Valentine's Day per se. Like it was my sister's birthday, and that's about it. Like
Mm.
when they said, "Oh yeah, we'll come up this weekend," like Valentine's, and, like romance, and all these not even enter the conversation for not 1 second into my brain.
Nice. That's
And
good.
it took a friend of mine pointing that out. Like I'd mentioned, "Oh yeah, my cousin is visiting me on this date," and they were like, "Wow, your cousin is visiting you on Valentine's Day. How single are you?" And I was like, "Ah." I'm so single. I'm
Yeah.
just now realizing what that looks like. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's gonna be
whatever.
great. I'm
That'll be
excited.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's his first time back since that trip. And yeah, we're just gonna have some good times. He's been busting his ass. So he's also very excited to get some breathing room here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. This was fun. Appreciate your time and appreciate anyone here who is still listening. As always, appreciate your time through any aspect of what we discussed today. If you have any opinions or questions or comments, please leave a comment down below. Shoot us an email. And yeah, if you're still here, hit that thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate it. And I guess leave a rating as well on if you're listening. But appreciate your time, and I guess we will see you next week. Peace out.
Whatever.
That's all for this week, folks. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you might be listening to this.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon as well. That way you'll get notified each week as we upload new episodes.
If you have a comment about the podcast, or if you have a question for us to use to springboard a future conversation, please email us at hi@itsonlyupfromhere.com.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. And don't forget, it's only up from here.